Hello and welcome to Oh the Horror, where we all go sometimes. I'm Jack Ellis,
And I'm Matt Ellis.
and today we will be reviewing the newly released Evil Dead sequel, Evil Dead Rise. Uh, Initially, when I first heard about it, I was skeptical of this movie. Evil Dead might be one of my favorite horror franchises, probably next to uh, series like Halloween, Scream, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But the film didn't look all that impressive, and it kind of seemed to be, cashing in on the prequel train. But actually, I didn't think it was that bad. But yeah, if you want to talk about what you thought beforehand, or just go on and start
Yeah,
narrating.
I kind of was where you were. I honestly just didn't seem like there was anything special about this movie. It just, I know that not every movie is gonna be unique, and that's why we call them fly-by-night movies. But I mean, that's kind of what I would say this movie is gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean, it was about basic demonic possession, trying to you know free your loved one from their curse and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
so I guess we'll just go ahead and go into it.
All right, sounds good.
The film begins with three friends, Caleb, Jessica, and Teresa, on a vacation in a cabin. Jessica is bedridden with no one knowing what exactly is wrong with her. When Teresa stays by her side, she reads Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. Jessica soon starts reading from the book out loud without even looking at it in a demonic voice. She attacks Teresa and scalps her by just pulling her hair off, and it takes off her scalp as well. She and Teresa go out to where Caleb is, and Jess takes Caleb's flying drone and puts the rotating blade to her face and gets knocked in the water. Caleb dives in to rescue her, and she decapitates him and just throws his head out onto the dock. So, Jack, what do you think about the opening scene?
Yeah, like I said, I was initially skeptical of this movie, but as this scene really caught my attention. Um, it not only has sort of the vibe of the first movie in a newer setting and what that movie was trying to go for. Um, I do really like this scene. I like the sort of atmosphere of it. Because it truly seems like it's trying to recreate the magic of the first couple movies.
I mean, I didn't think the opening scene was half bad. I thought it was kind of like, the demonic voice. Like, why are all demonic voices the same? They all pretty much sound like an old person with laryngitis, or maybe like a drunk person with laryngitis. It's
Yeah.
just, I mean, I would just think by this point they've had something better.
Yeah.
But, yeah, moving on. We then go back to the events from the first day. You see Beth, who is a guitar technician, in taking a pregnancy test in a stall and finding out she is indeed pregnant. Also, where were they in at this time? Were they in Thailand?
Um, I'm actually not sure. I don't. I don't remember.
I'm not really. As a result, she goes to see her sister Ellie in Los Angeles for support, not knowing Ellie is facing some sad, unforeseen circumstances herself. Ellie is currently living in an apartment with just her son Danny and daughters Bridget and Cassie. It never says their ages, but it seems like Danny and Bridget are adolescents and Cassie is still in grade school. Beth arrives and she and the kids are sitting around the table when Cassie actually shows her aunt a weapon she made with a broom and one of those, like, what was it, either a doll or one of those horse on a stick toys?
I think it was a baby doll.
Yeah, a baby doll on top of a broomstick. And she states she's making it because the apartment building is haunted and it is to protect her. She tells Beth the story of how the building was once a bank is still haunted by the people who worked in it. Ellie tells her kids to go pick up some pizza, and while they are out, she tells Beth about her how her husband is leaving her and that their apartment is going to be demolished in a month. They have no place to stay. After that, Beth tries to tell Ellie about her pregnancy. Before she can, an earthquake starts, and the kids have gotten back by this point, but they are in the parking garage when it starts. Once it ends, Danny sees a large hole in the ground made by the earthquake. Through the opening, see that it looks like a bank, like Cassie was talking about earlier. So, Jack, what did you think about this part?
Um, I really liked it. So a thing with Evil Dead movies that have come out in the past 15 years is that for some reason they feel the need to delve into heavy topics for some reason. This one is obviously unexpected pregnancy, and you know, uh, I can maybe think of one event that's happened in the past year that may make the plot line of unexpected pregnancy maybe more impactful than it is. Uh, but the remake also dealt with things like drug addiction and withdrawal, and uh, I just I think I don't know, but I think this is trying to shoehorn its way into the concept of elevated horror. Um, but I sort of feel like one of the things that made the original movies great, it was just because it was just a bunch of drunk college students who did something stupid and caused this demon outbreak. It wasn't like, people who do it in these movies aren't necessarily not stupid, but I feel like there's just something more relatable than these sort of, you know, it's just Evil Dead was always kind of fun horror, and these aspects don't really make it like a fun watch to me. But this has been long-winded, and I'm sorry my voice is kind of raspy. I'm very tired. And yeah, other than that, I do like the characters, and even though it's a bit ham-handed, I do sort of sympathize with their situations, and yeah,
I agree with you. But I mean, I think it works either way in a horror movie when it's either something bad happening to people who are already is everything on fire.
yeah, everything's fine. I'm just watching.
Like it works either way when you either have already facing some crappy circumstances and then this gets added on to it, or you've got situations like it also works when you've got situations like in Smile, where, the person who is being terrorized she's a psychiatrist, a person with a fulfilling career. She has a fiance. She lives in a nice house. She's got a good, close relationship with her family. Her sister and their family at least, and it all just seems like things are going good, and then that's when it takes a tragic turn. So, really, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to miss with like what the characters are facing where things kind of go to hell.
Yeah,
Um, that's really all I kind of
yeah. You can go ahead and go.
okay. Without thinking, and against Bridget's advice, Danny goes in to look around. While looking through some old items, Danny finds an ancient book that is binded closed by what looks like claws. When they decide to go back to their apartment, Danny takes the book, two vinyl from the bank. Ellie and Beth at this time are standing in the hallway trying to call the kids when a neighbor comes out and asks who Beth is. When she says she's Ellie's sister, he responds with, "Group, right?" This seems awkward until the kids come off the elevator to see their mom. They all go back in the room and regularly go on about them. This is except for Danny, who decides oh, to open the book again. Well, he tries to open the book again, and this time he succeeds. But they only find very disturbing images of pictures of what looks like demons torturing people, possibly in hell. They close the book back, and after Bridget leaves, Danny plays the vinyls on his player in the bedroom. The records recall a priest in the 1920s talking in front of a congregation about using the very book Danny brought into the apartment with the Naturom Demento to understand more about the supernatural, while the whole congregation is, of course, objecting to it. This brings the demon into the building, and it almost kills Ellie while she is riding alone in the elevator, but does still possess her. Next, we see her come back in the apartment, limp and trapped. So, any thoughts on this part?
Um, I do think that the recordings are really creepy compared to some of the other movies, and I think this is just a pretty cool scene. I don't know what else to say.
I kind of thought it was pretty silly. I mean, I get it, he's a teenager, and I probably would have done the same thing if I was in that situation at that age, but for Danny to, like, just go down into that hole after there was an earthquake, it's like, if an aftershock happened, the ground is already, there's already a hole in the ceiling, so it's like, yeah, that's just kind of asking for death.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole, like, taking the book and records, like, again, that's actually the part I meant, that it's something, it's unwise, but I probably would have done it myself at that age.
Yeah.
Like, we were all teenagers
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I don't think it ever says why exactly the priest wanted to unlock what was in that book. I don't know if it was because he was wanting to get more of an understanding of supernatural, or if he was maybe wanting to open it and try to conquer it to get better control over demons. I mean, maybe it said why, and I just didn't see it. But anyway, the first thing she does after getting back into the apartment is start cooking eggs, while her kids and sister wonder what is going on. The demon then kills Ellie right in front of everyone, but just before passing, she is able to ask Beth to look after her kids. Danny and Beth try to get Ellie out for help, but the elevator does not work and the stairs are missing. Yeah, the stairs are literally gone. Some of the neighbors try to help by going through an apartment that's abandoned and actually has a fire escape outside of it. Where they get to, Ellie comes back and tries to kill everyone she can. She leaves a scar on Bridget's face that soon causes her to turn demonic. Ellie goes outside the apartment room, kills two of their neighbors, and even throws one of her victims' eyeballs into another person's mouth. This is an intense fight scene that results in Beth and the kids barricading the door with Ellie on the other side. When Beth finds out about the book and records, she has Danny explain everything. Meanwhile, Cassie opens the door because Ellie makes her think she is better. Danny and Beth are able to keep her out and re-barricade her, but as soon as they do, Bridget's possession has commenced. Beth finds her eating glass in the kitchen, and she says, and I quote, "I have to kill the creepy crawlies in my tummy." This is because once possessed, Bridget gets a bunch of locusts in her stomach. Bridget then goes after everyone, but is killed with Cassie's broken toy. Okay. Feels like a good stopping point.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is, like, I think the thing is, back when the original came out in 1991, the violence and stuff shocked a lot of people, and I think this is a good way to continue that legacy with a lot of just gross out. And I actually really enjoy this movie for that, and it has a lot of the Evil Dead like beats, and I really appreciate the attention to detail.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that in Ellie goes on an elevator by herself after the earthquake. She scolded her kids before for going on and for using the elevator to get back up after an earthquake. So that was kind of weird. Also, that thing I talked about with the guy saying the groovy right. What didn't Cassie, the youngest one, say earlier? Something like, "My mom says you're a groovy whore," or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I think so.
That that was pretty too. And it's like, yeah, of course, the first thing she does after being possessed is start cooking eggs because she's a woman. I guess even demons believe in gender roles. And so, so yeah, I mean, it's, the woman who played Ellie, she did a pretty good job at this.
She did, yeah.
I mean, it did creep me out. I will admit, and I expected this to just be pretty cheesy, but it wasn't. And one thing I noticed is that it's kind of a common theme to have, well, in demonic horror movies, is to have locusts. And if a locust goes into your body, then you're possessed. And I'm wondering if that's maybe relating back to in the Bible when God would use locusts to punish people.
I think that is what that is.
Because one thing I didn't mention was when when Danny and Bridget were first able to open the book, they had a bunch of locusts just fly all over them. So yeah, that was something. Um, okay. So moving on. At this point, they are desperate. They're in the house, wondering what to do. Their mother is demented and waiting outside for a chance to attack them, and there are two dead bodies just lying out in the way. And Beth listens to another part of the tape to hopefully find a way to get rid of the demon. However, all she hears is the priest talking about how much he regrets unlocking Eve and recalls other priests trying to help him, but only getting possessed as well. He also states that the only way to stop this force is to kill the host, which in this case I imagine is Ellie, since she was the first person to get possessed. Um, while this is happening, Bridget comes back and kills Danny with a knife, but he first is able to set her on fire and kills her with the stove. Ellie was able to get back in the apartment via the air vent, and she also sees at this point that Beth is pregnant and tries to kill the fetus before Beth stabs her with a pair of scissors. And this was actually pretty pinpoint. She got her like right through the nostrils.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And of course it doesn't actually kill her, but it does buy them some time. So, is it okay if I say the C word on here?
Yes, that's fine.
Um, So Cassie and Beth run into the hallway and take the shotgun from the neighbor Ellie killed earlier. When Ellie comes back out, Beth gets a couple shots in, and then there's a kind of a funny scene where she gets interrupted by the guy whose shotgun that was trying to stop her, and because he revives, he just yells out, "That's my shotgun, you stupid thieving cunt." Which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
And so they both run in the elevator, and it does move, but it does start filling with blood. They're both able to get down to the parking garage just before drowning to death. And at this point, all of the possessed people in that apartment have banded together to form a what's it called, a maraudon?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Something like that. But yeah, they pretty much form this big lobby. Yeah. And they are both able to get to the parking garage just before Jeremy said. The two make a break for Beth's car, but it won't start. They are able to get the guard door for the garage to open. Beth makes it out, but Cassie is stuck inside. Beth breaks back in right as the combined mob of all the people try to behead Cassie with a chainsaw. But just before they can, Beth shoots it again with a shotgun. Cassie gives Beth the chainsaw, and she uses it to hurt the Marauder, that's what it's called, to cut the Marauder, but also push it into a wood chipper. Ellie's head remains and tells Beth she will be a bad mom just like theirs was. Beth then kicks her head into the machine, and the two then leave and are not seen after that. Jessica, who we saw earlier, apparently lives in the same apartment building and is seen getting in her car in the same parking, but then notices all the blood and tries to call the cops before getting possessed herself. And then the movie ends. So, any thoughts about this part?
Yeah, the shining elevator, or yeah, the blood elevator. Well, case in point, it's just it makes me think too much about The Shining, and I'm sure that was like the point, but it just kind of took me out of it. And I like the way that it ended because, like, with most horror movie villains who won't seem to die, you always have the thought of, wait, what if you throw them in a wood chipper? And that's exactly what they did. So I like that part. And I thought it was really interesting that the beginning was also the end. As far as, I thought that was pretty cool. And honestly, the end with her getting away with the kid was pretty nice. So yeah.
Yeah, that's another thing I like is to see, usually at the end of films, even when you think the protagonists have succeeded in escaping it, they still show something that shows they still have to deal with it, which, like I know it's horror movie, it's supposed to not really feel good, but I feel like even in gore movies they can allow for hard work to pay off.
Yeah.
That's just my, and I have something else. I'm drawing a blank on it though. It's one thing that I was wondering while I watched this movie was, like, the demon was already an invisible force, which they often are, but it still decided to reside in a human while it did this bad stuff. And you might think, that's kind of the case in all horror movies and possibly life, if you think, demons are invisible and they do have power, so why don't they just do what they do, being invisible and maintaining their sense of mystery and torture people? But I thought about that, and I personally think it's because it's also really, scary and depressing for people to see their loved ones in, like that. They they take the form of a person people care about, and they use that person to also torture their loved ones and other innocent ones. So that's just my opinion. But overall, I thought this movie was good. Like I said, there really wasn't too much special about it, but it was a quality film.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good actually. I don't have a lot to say about it. It was just, yeah, I liked it. I'll probably give it I'll say a 7 out of 10.
I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
All right. Well, anyway, this has been Oh the Horror. I'm Jack Ellis,
And I'm Matt Ellis.
and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.